Welcome to the podcast Girls in Finance. I'm Tanvi Singh.
I'm Hailey O.
So, why are we doing this? So, the main purpose of our podcast is for young girls to gain insight into the field of finance from professionals, raise awareness for financial literacy, and most importantly, receive advice on how to break into the field.
So, in this podcast episode, we interviewed Trisha Nomura, who's the owner of Ascend Consulting LLC. She has shared valuable insight into various aspects of accounting and provided career and life advice towards young girls like ourselves. So, let's jump right into it. Hi, Trisha. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, today we would like to touch on just a few questions regarding your career, your opinions regarding certain topics, and more. So, to start off, would you be able to share with us like a brief overview of your background?
Sure. And, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. It's such a pleasure to be here today speaking to both of you, Haley and Tanvi. I just love, love, love what you folks are doing here with this project. So thanks for the invitation. Back to your question, my professional background. So I majored in accounting in college and started my career as an auditor at a public accounting firm in Honolulu called PricewaterhouseCoopers. I passed the CPA, so that stands for Certified Public Accountant exam, and earned my CPA license while I was there. I then worked in private industry in both accounting and operational roles, went back into public accounting, and ended up spending a portion of my career actually in HR. That's a little bit different from your typical path for an accountant. And so today I have a consulting practice where I work with clients on projects that range from maybe in accounting, HR, or in operations focus. I love what I do because I'm able to help clients in many different ways and see firsthand the results of the things that we work on together. I have to say, though, that accounting is the foundation of everything that I have done throughout all of those roles that I have had thus far. So I am very grateful that, I chose accounting as my major when I was in college.
Yeah, thank you so much for your response. But could we ask what made you pursue accounting?
Sure. When I was in high school, we didn't have an accounting class. I didn't really know what that was until I went to college. So I knew that I wanted to go into business, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I took my first accounting course my freshman year of college with Mrs. Ginger Parker at Green University, and everything just clicked for me. I had a misconception at that time, which I think exists today with many students who are exploring different careers, that in order to be an accountant, you have to be really good at math. That is not true. I realized this as I took my first class that, while you do need to have a basic understanding of math, you don't need to be able to take Calculus 5 in college to consider accounting as a career. Accounting really is about the ability to take numbers and make sense of them, categorize, interpret, and analyze them. They say accounting is the language of business. And in order to understand business, you have to be able to speak, so to say, accounting. So knowing how to interpret a set of financial statements and the factors that impact how those financial statements are prepared, that is important no matter what you decide you want to do in business. Um, I knew this, and so although I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be as a freshman, I knew that accounting was going to be an important foundation for that eventual career path.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. So, considering the importance of accounting and knowing accounting, since it's the core of business, what advice would you give to high school students or potentially even college students who are interested in the field of accounting or finance or even business in general?
I would say go out there and find out more information about what the field entails. What you folks are doing here with this podcast is amazing. I love the initiative you're taking to go out there and not only find out more information, but also make it available for others that are in the same boat as you are. There are two, two great websites that I would recommend. So joinaccountingplus.com and thiswaytocpa.com that have a wealth of information on what our profession is like. I would say also create a LinkedIn profile. It's never too early for you to create a LinkedIn profile, even as a high school student. I know both of you have already done that. I love it. And start networking with professionals in the field. There are so many of my peers that I know are willing to help students that have an interest. And so, being on LinkedIn gives you a great opportunity to do that. Um, Third, I would say I'm a firm believer in the value of part-time jobs and internships as you make career decisions, no matter what it is, even if it's not accounting or finance related. These, I believe, will give you a true experience for you to see if you would like a particular field before you actually work in it. And, last but not least, join an organization where you can learn more about the profession. The AICPA, so that stands for the American Institute of CPAs, has a free student membership open to high school students. You can actually access that information through that thiswaytocpa.com site that I mentioned earlier. So through that membership, you'll get access to tools and resources that will help you along the way in your high school journey. They even have scholarship opportunities, and then, that will continue as you move on to college and the workforce. So, joining an organization would also be a great way if you are interested in this field.
I loved how you talked about networking since like we see that these days like individuals like us are noticing like how important it is to like build connection, especially in like specific careers if you want to like go ahead and like take an internship and or a job. On the other hand, so like to what extent do you think networking played a role in your success?
Networking for me has been invaluable. I have to admit that in the beginning, it was something that I was not very comfortable with. Approaching a stranger to introduce myself or striking a conversation with someone I don't know, it wasn't for me, right? But I learned that in order to grow, you have to learn to do things that you might not be comfortable with. And once I started doing it, I saw firsthand how important it was. Meeting new people, being able to hear their perspectives, oftentimes hearing the ones opposite from your own can be the most insightful. Getting advice, helping other people. I've met some of my closest friends through putting myself out there and networking. With COVID, I think it's difficult for a lot of students because they might just be used to virtual meetings or not communicating as much face to face. But I think it's really important to build on this skill because the ability to communicate is very, very important no matter what profession you decide to go into, right? And so networking is one of the ways that you can learn to really build this skill.
Thank you for sharing. So, you mentioned how building networking skills is very important. So, do you have any possible specific advice towards how young people could expand their network, such as cold emailing, or is there a specific platform, or just talking to people in person?
It's all of the above. So, some of those opportunities I mentioned earlier, like LinkedIn, would be a great way to start networking. Joining an organization would give you opportunities to attend events, right? Maybe meet other people. And so I think those are all great ways to start networking. But I also love cold emails because I really believe that, if you want something, it's up to you to go out and make it happen, right? And if you, for example, send a cold email to someone, what's the worst that can happen? Is they just might not respond to you, or they might say, no, I'm really busy right now. But on the flip side, what's the best thing that can happen for it from that email that you sent, right? You might be able to find a mentor, or you might get a lot of great questions answered for you. And so you never know unless you ask or you try. So I think, all of those options are great. And as you start doing it, you'll kind of figure out the ones that you're, most comfortable with or that work for you and that are successful. And you'll, just kind of keep on developing that.
Thank you. Referencing back to the point of a mentor, I was just curious to know, like, how important is it for like high schoolers to have that specific sort of guidance or mentor for the field that they're going into? And what about for individuals who can't kind of like, get that guidance?
I think finding a mentor is great. And, also reaching out to different folks, because what you're going to find is you'll have a different connection with each person. And eventually you'll find someone that you really, really connect with, that you really look up to, right? And you're going to want their advice. And a mentor will be your mentor regardless of, what specific area you might go into, right? Someone that's been in business for a long time, that has a lot of leadership experience, that's someone you can talk to no matter what, right? And so, yeah, I highly suggest, reaching out to people, talking to them, finding someone again that you connect with well. And I don't know anyone within, my network that would say no if someone asked them to be a mentor. So I think there are a lot of folks out there that are willing to help people, interested in our profession.
All right, so going back to your work experience, I was wondering if you could share your perspective towards work-life balance, especially when considering you have such a big array of experience in different careers and more.
Yeah, I'm a wife, a mom, a daughter, a friend, a volunteer, so much more than just an accountant and, what I do for work. I don't really care for the term work-life balance, but rather I prefer the term work-life integration. So what that means to me is that there isn't a distinction, but rather a blending of all of these different parts of my life that are important. So, for example, if you're going to answer emails in the evenings, right, that is part of what would normally be your personal time. But sometimes it has to be done. And if you do that though, then on the flip side, it's okay if during the workday you need to leave the office to attend your child's school function during the day, right? It's about learning to make all of these components work. In order to do this though, setting expectations on both sides is very important as an employee and as a boss. So while I've worked really hard at work-life integration, I also respect that in order to be successful, it's key that I communicate this, right, to my peers, my bosses, my employees. Today would be my client and my family, so that we can all find a way to support and help each other. And setting healthy boundaries is also key. You have to prioritize and know what is important to you and know that it's okay to say no sometimes to things.
Thank you so much, Trisha. I think going on, you're like really experienced and you've been like well adversed like in the entire field. So I'm like sure that you have probably learned a lot of lessons. So what do you think would be the most valuable one so far?
I would say that it is, don't be afraid of failure. I think as a student or young professional, people put too much pressure on themselves to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Self-awareness is key, right? Understanding what your strengths are, but also perhaps more importantly, what your challenges are will help you to grow. You don't have to be good at everything, but know the things you're good at and the things that you just aren't, that are more challenging for you. And sometimes you'll fail. That is okay. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not experienced many, many failures in my life. As a female and as a working mom, I feel like it is important for young women out there to know that the road I experienced came with many bumps and sometimes frustration and tears, and that's all right. The key is knowing what the learning lesson is from each failure, using that to be better in the future, and most importantly, having the courage to get back up whenever you have fallen down.
Thank you. So I guess just one last question to wrap things up. I'm sure you heard of this a phrase or a similar saying towards like you should pursue what you love. Do you think that is true and applicable towards today's society?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you pursue something that you love and that you enjoy doing, it comes from a different place. And it shows in your work, in everything that you do. And so success will come naturally when you're doing something that you really do enjoy doing. And it takes a little while sometimes, right, to figure out exactly what that is. But I would say that I definitely agree with that term. And I think that part of your journey in high school, and that as you move on to college, is to really think about what is it that I love doing, what brings me joy. And for me, I figured out that helping other people really gives me a lot of joy, you know and so that's why I now have my consulting practice, right? That's why I've chosen to um, put a lot of effort into my volunteer activities. That's why I love talking to students like yourselves, right? So for me, that I figured out, right, like what I really enjoy doing. And I think that you'll find, again, that you will find success in many different ways if you pursue what you love.
Thank you so much, Trisha, for joining us today. We really appreciate for you for this podcast that you agreed to.
Thank you for having me. Best of luck to both of you as you start this podcast journey.